For the next generation of retirees, that's you, my friend. The question that will trump all others will be a simple one. How do you add life to longer lives? The equally simple answer: technology. That was from Dr. Joe Coughlin, Director, MIT AIDS Lab. But how does technology help us live a better, longer life? That, my friend, is what we're going to explore this month on the Retirement Answer Man Show. Howdy, my name is Roger Whitney. I am your host, and this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. We want you to rock retirement, and technology may be, well, I think it's going to be, a very important tool for you to harness to rock retirement. So we're going to explore that this entire month. Let me set the stage. This week, we are going to focus on transportation, how technology is going to help you stay mobile. And each week, we're going to talk through a very important aspect of your life and how technology can help. So next week, we're going to talk about how technology will help you with social engagement. In week 3, how it will help you age in place, basically live where you want to live independently. And in week 4, we're going to talk about technology and how it's going to impact not just your health in the medical sense, I guess it all works out that way, but in the wellness sense. So we can figure out what tools we have available to us to impact these very important parts of our life. And then in week 5, because you know May is a fiver, we got 5 weeks in May, we're going to explore probably one of the most important topics when it comes to technology tools, and that is how do we harness technology to make it serve us rather than us serve it, which is a major issue that I'm grappling with. I'll share that later in the month. But you know we can't do any of this until we have that all-important disclaimer. I think I need to change that disclaimer music to something less ominous. Yeah, it's compliance and it's important, but it doesn't need to be scary. It's really wise advice. Don't take advice from me on this show. I promise you, I am not offering you advice because I don't know you. I really only give advice to clients that I work for as a fiduciary. I don't think you're one of them. So before you make any decisions, talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, your financial advisor, because that's just really good, well, advice. Now let's go to the hot topic segment. We're going to bring Nicole on and talk about the pace of technology change and play one of my favorite games. So in the hot topic segment today, I want to set the table, set the stage, set both of them for how technology is changing so rapidly that sometimes we miss it, and how it's going to really help us really rock retirement in ways we can't imagine. And to do this, I thought I'd bring on rock star Nicole Mills to chat about technology. How you doing, Nicole?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I missed you last month, by the way. So, when you were in college and you had to do a term paper,
yes,
where did you go to research it?
I would go to the library or I would get on the computer.
Okay. And when you went to the library, did you use the Dewey Decimal System? You know, the cards where you go look through the cards?
The card catalog? No. Yeah. I got on the library computer and found where I needed to go.
Oh, it was all computerized.
It was. Yeah.
So you realize when I was in college and high school, if I had to do a research paper, I would go to the library and there'd be this big drawer thing with all the cards. And you'd have to find the card, find the Dewey Decimal System, and then go hunt down the book in the stacks. I would spend days at the library. And you had the computer.
I did.
You just typed it in and it told you. You could probably do this from a coffee shop now as far as research.
It depends. I mean, there's some things that I don't think that there's digital versions of yet. But
okay. And how old were you when you had a mobile phone?
I was in high school, but that was back when like daytime minutes were gold and you couldn't use very many. So it was for emergency only cell phone.
Okay.
Like,
when I
call
grew
mom,
up,
tell her you're coming home.
yeah, in high school, we didn't have phones at all. You realize that I didn't have the internet in middle school, high school. Did you know that? It's pretty crazy,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I mean, I was one of the original like college students on Facebook back when it was just a college student thing.
Debit cards. We didn't have debit cards. It was cash or nothing. Digital cameras. Didn't have those.
Do you have Polaroids?
Did have a Polaroid. And I remember when you go on a trip, you have all these rolls of film and you'd have to go send them off to get, having 24-hour film development was a big deal when I was in high school.
Whoa.
And then you'd get like 2 pictures out of 24 that might have been good, but you didn't know what you had until you went and got it developed. iPods.
That was new when I was in college. It's funny because I still remember when CDs were new when I was a little kid and my dad getting Michael Jackson's Bad on CD and he was like so excited.
So as a reference, I had an 8-track in my car.
Ooh.
You know what that is? You can't rewind, I don't think, in an 8-track. You know, what was the iPod's initial phrase? You have 1,000 songs in your pocket? Google?
I don't know.
Trivia was so hard because, you're sitting there. How old is, John Cusack when you're watching a John Cusack movie? You don't know. Now you can just look at it on your smartphone. Well, we didn't have smartphones. We had to just sit there and wonder.
Poor you.
I know. It was horrible.
Not knowing how old John Cusack was.
All those random questions that you're trying to figure out, we could not do that we take for granted nowadays. Right? We were looking.
Yeah, but there are some things that, technology has impaired us a little bit. My sister got locked out of her house and she didn't know anybody's phone number by heart to call them.
But that's a good one. I know my wife's phone number. I don't know my kids' phone numbers. Now, this is going to blow your mind. We did not have DVRs. We could not skip commercials. Listen to me, Nicole. We literally, when we watched a show, had to watch the commercial.
Yeah, see, I'm not quite young enough for that to blow my mind. I had to watch commercials.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or sometimes we would record things on VHS from the TV, and then you just had to fast forward through the commercials on your VHS.
And I talked to my kids, and when they went to college, they're back now, but when they went to college, younger generation doesn't subscribe to cable or, it's all Netflix, all on demand all the time, which is crazy. Here's one. I actually had a physical electronic gadget. The only thing it did, spell checker. You would type the word into the little thing and it would figure out whether you're spelling it right because the word processor or the typewriter did not have that in it.
Wow.
And for someone like me, you know how grammatically poor I am. You can imagine I was like the dark ages for me. Texting? No texting whatsoever. You didn't have phones to text. And when you had phones, it wasn't texting.
No FaceTime?
No FaceTime. How many times in your life have you actually used a payphone with coins?
That's a good question. I think I did in like junior high, but I don't know. Can you still even find a payphone with coins?
I think there's one.
There's just one out there somewhere.
We have all these things that we take for granted. I remember the first computer I got. So the first quote unquote laptop computer, which was not a laptop, and we actually had one, was something called an Osborne. And it was like the briefcase that held the nuclear code size thing. I mean, you would never put this thing in your lap. And it had a screen that was like 4 inches big and it was monochrome. And you realize Windows wasn't developed really. It was just released in 1985, which is the year I graduated high school. Before that, it was DOS. Do you know what DOS is?
Is that the one where it's like the screen is green?
Exactly.
I vaguely remember as a child, like putting these giant discs into the computer that were like black.
Floppy disks. They're called floppy disks. Yeah. And they started at like 4 or 5 inches and then they got smaller. I can remember in high school having a cassette tape recorder and then I would have the microphone up to the speaker and I would play an album to record the album with the little microphone to the speaker to try to create a mixtape. And then like my sister would come in or the dog would bark and I'd get so upset
No, the worst was when you were recording from the radio and then the DJ would talk over the end of the song.
That is another one. That's a good point.
That was really bad.
Okay, so you're older than I think. But the whole point of this is technology. There are so many things. I mean, just the internet, which we'll talk a little bit about. We take these things for granted. Hey, Siri, remind me to do this. Alexa, how old is John Cusack? Oh, Siri's talking. She heard me. All these things we take for granted that are, for the most part, really enhancing our lives. I mean, obviously there's some, the Facebook and, social media and stuff can detract from us, but they're tools that are used to really enhance our lives. So this is going to be a fun game for you to play with your kids, Nicole. What would be one thing that they would be amazed that you didn't have that they take for granted?
Probably Netflix.
To just watch what you want when you want to watch it.
Exactly. Like trying to explain to them, like, you used to go to the video store and you had to hope that they still had the movie that you wanted.
I can remember walking around. That's a great point. I can remember walking around Blockbuster. I mean, just think of all
or sometimes like shifting through like the return bin to see if they had returned the movie that was a new release that you had wanted because there were no copies on the shelf.
The point of all this, and this is why we're diving into this for this entire month, is technology is not just transforming how you and I are going to rock retirement. It's transforming everything. And things that we take for granted today are pretty revolutionary if you think about them. So we want to explore how you can take advantage of some of these to, rock retirement, and also give you a peek to some of the things that are coming in order to help you just have an awesome life. So let's go dive into how technology is going to transform your transportation and mobility. Do you remember that first time you drove by yourself? You just got your license. It was your first solo time of walking out to the car and just going. Maybe your mom or dad needed milk. I'll go. I'll do it. You get in the car, put your music on, you roll the window down, even if it's too cold or too hot, and you just drive. That sense of freedom, of having control of where you are and when you go there and when you come back. It's a pretty powerful feeling. It's one of those milestones in life that gives you access to the entire country. It's just a matter of gas and time. It's that first big step as a semi-adult into independence. And it sticks with you. My kids, in a month or so, we're going to Colorado. And my kids are going to come up, my daughter and my son, 21, 23. They're going to come up and drive up separately because they can't stay the entire month. And they're going to come and go home at the same time. But there's this debate right now because they both want to drive themselves. They don't want to ride together. Not that they don't love each other. They do. I think the crux is they want to have their car so they can have their freedom, not just of when they come and go to Colorado, but when they come and go while they're there. And so they may drive both of their cars following us in a caravan, which is very inefficient, but it's that sense of freedom that they want to hold on to. And if you don't have your car, you don't have that sense of freedom. And that sticks with us. And where that really starts to come into play is as we get older and we maybe feel like we're losing that sense of freedom in our ability to drive. So you fast forward to a whole different stage of life. This is probably 15 years ago now. My wife and I were visiting my grandmother. She was alive, and we were with her husband, her second husband, after my grandfather died, Ed. And so Ed picks us up at the airport in Orlando, and we're driving to Daytona Beach area. And he has this big car. I don't know if it's a Grand Marquis or what. A huge car, one of those floaty cars. And my wife and I are in the back, and Ed is driving. And it was the scariest car ride of our lives. We still talk about it today. This guy should not have been driving on the road. But there was no way he was going to give up that freedom. But what happens as you start getting older and our lives are extended? Well, we get stiff. Our eyes start to go. Our hearing starts to go. Slower reaction times. Medications that can impact our ability to be safe drivers. All of these things slowly start to take hold and put at jeopardy our independence of getting out and about when we want to go. That sense of freedom, which is a big part of life, of a rocking retirement. And the impacts of all of these things are borne out in a lot of the statistics that we see. Older drivers are more fragile. Their fatality rates are 17 times higher than those between 25 and 64. More than 75% of drivers over age 65 report using one or more medications, but less than 1/3 acknowledge awareness of the potential impact on their driving performance. So since we are, as a whole, going to live much longer lives, and that mobility to be able to go where you want to go, when you want to go, is a key to happiness and security and feeling empowered. How can technology help us accomplish this? That's what we need to explore. So let's start off with technology and just talk about what's happening right now that you probably have noticed but don't appreciate near as much. So if we look at cars today, let's just talk about sensors. Cars are pretty incredible. I have a 2016 Grand Cherokee. It has blind spot sensors on my mirror, so it'll flash a light if somebody's in my blind spot, even if I don't have my turn signal on. If I turn my turn signal on and someone's in my blind spot, it will beep at me and say, "Hey, dude, there's somebody there." You have automatic emergency braking. Let's be honest, though, that's a little annoying. When someone's turning right and I'm coming up and I'm slowing down, but Mr. Computer doesn't think I'm slowing down fast enough, it'll start and not apply the brake. It's really annoying, actually. It's like, Dad, I know, but when I step back and think about it, I'll put up with the annoyance, because if you're distracted, it can literally not just save your bacon, it could save your life or someone else's life. So automatic emergency braking is pretty incredible. You have adaptive cruise control where it will manage the distance between you and the car in front of you. Because you get on cruise control on a long trip, it's easy just to cruise and then come up on somebody slower and not really pay attention. They have more advanced things, and I don't have these on my vehicle, of lane departure, where it will help you maintain your lane and not allow you to drift or warn you that you're drifting. And they have self-parking, which some people really, really need, by the way. All of these things are pretty incredible advances just in the last 10 years or so that are helping people stay more mobile. I think of my father-in-law, who is, the elder person in my life here locally and doesn't listen to the show, so I'll talk about it a little bit. He drives a pickup truck. He's in his mid-70s. And I think these things help him and help my mother-in-law a lot as they drive around town, because they're sharp, but they're aging. And these things are, although annoyances, I think make it safer and allow them and will allow them to stay on the road a lot longer. One of the issues with these technologies as we get older, too, is that they can be pretty annoying. I mean, like I talked about the emergency braking or the beeping sounds. And so it's up to us to adapt a little bit to cars they're not driving themselves, but they're getting pretty good at it. And we talk about Tesla, which is revolutionizing a lot of these advanced technologies. Love or hate the cars or the guy, but they have cars that are virtually self-driving or driver assisted. We hear about them when there's a mishap, but those things are on the road all the time without a mishap. We just hear about it when there is one, but we're getting to the point where cars will begin to drive themselves. And you and I are going to live through this transformation of having cars doing that, but also having cars that aren't. So that will maybe be some messiness, but this is all going to lend to you being able to stay on the road longer. Now, outside of just simply driving your car, think about other ways that you can get around town and stay independent and not depend on someone else. You have these ride services. You have Lyft or Uber, which on your phone, you can get a ride at a fairly reasonable price virtually anywhere. And the ride will come quickly. And you can choose what level of kind of ride that you want, whether you want to share a car with someone else. I've done that in San Diego to save money. And I've done, the Uber Black where I'm looking, profiling and styling. And you can get a reliable ride in minutes without hassling someone else in your social network. That's pretty powerful. They even have GoGo Grandparent, which works the old-fashioned way by dialing a phone and requesting a ride, and that's available in all 50 states. So if you're not smartphone savvy, they have a service where you can actually go the old-fashioned way and dial the phone. I imagine rotary phone works too. Oh, maybe not on the phone trees. So if you think of yourself getting older and maybe not feeling safe to drive or not feeling comfortable to drive, you could literally do away with your automobile and use services like this, depending on where you live, to be able to stay independent from a transportation standpoint and forego the cost of insurance, buying the new car, the upkeep, all those other things. That's pretty transformative if we think back to, how our parents or grandparents did it 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now, why is this so important? Well, I think I've relayed this story before, but I have a good friend who has volunteered for Meals on Wheels for well over a decade. He has a Friday route, and Meals on Wheels is a charity that brings food to elderly or people that cannot get out of the house. So they bring food. Yes, the food is important, but they also bring the social aspect of it. And what he tells me is, because he's done this so long, he has his route where he has a relationship with the people on his route as he brings food into their home, is that for a lot of them, he's like the only person they see the entire week. They get isolated. And so the ability to find some way of getting out and about is pretty powerful. Now, it's not just driving that we talk about or these ride shares. Just think of around town. If you live in a town and you want to walk, well, even in towns, there are ways to get around a lot easier. Sure, the Uber, but they have bike sharing. They have scooter sharing, which is a real annoyance in some places. There are electric bikes. I just recently got an electric bike to just drive around town with. I'm a cyclist. I like to ride my bike, but sometimes I don't want to get sweaty and I just want to go to the store and back. And they have bicycles that are electric that will either assist you in pedaling or will actually just pedal themselves. Well, the pedals don't go. So my bike, and I have a Super 73 by Lithium Bicycles, because I know somebody's going to ask me. It's a great way just to get on a little scooter that is an electric bike and drive, it has about a 40-mile radius on a battery. Those things, scooters, bike share, even if you live in an urban environment or a small town, can help you get out and about, even if you're not able to drive a car. And the question becomes, how do we start to integrate these things and think of a plan to be able to maintain independence from a transportation standpoint. Because there's a lot of pride that goes into, hey, I want to go when I want to go, where I want to go. That's the feeling that we want to hold on to, or that an elderly driver wants to hold on to, that sense of freedom of coming and going. We associate it with driving ourselves, but technology is bringing these things that will provide the same empowerment without it being driving it yourself necessarily. And I think that's the key distinction. We attach it to an automobile when really with technology, things are coming that we can get what we want, but just with a different thing. That's a way that we need to think about things, because sometimes we attach it to a specific thing rather than what the end goal is. So let's talk about the future a little bit. Well, we hear so much about self-driving cars, Tesla and others that have tested it, and we only hear about the bad things, but they're coming, and they're coming very quickly. And likely they'll come in the commercial realm first, where you can have a car, you just press a button, hey, I want to go here, and you just go along for the ride. It's your car. Maybe you assist it a little bit, but it will drive itself. Those things are coming here within the next decade or so. Pretty cool. That's going to give you a lot more independence for a lot longer as you age. You even hear testing of autonomous flying cars. What? I saw there's a Casey Neistat, who is a YouTuber. I saw a video where he tested one out in a secret lab out in Google land, and it was pretty amazing. Now, will that be something that you and I are doing in our 60s and 70s? Maybe not, but this is George Jetson stuff that's being tested right now. They're saying in 10 years, we're going to have floating trains that sort of look like that Disney World monorail. And they're testing things like that they're trying to build one between LA and San Francisco. It's an Elon Musk project who is really pushing the envelope on these tunnel-based hyperloops and these elevated trains that are going to allow you to be independent for a lot longer. These things are coming. They're already building them in China. They have more coming along in China, Germany, the US, India, and Malaysia. These things will cut transportation time and give us more mobility at a lot quicker pace. They're talking about passenger drones and this whole concept of connected and autonomous vehicles, CAVs. So you may hear that term coming. In addition, our road system is going to evolve over time, where they're going to serve as potentially the fundamental future of transportation, where the roads are actually talking to our cars, feeding us information, and helping the autonomous car get to where it needs to go, manage the traffic, manage the safety. Now, we think of this stuff as pie in the sky. All of this stuff is being tested in some way or another. And if you're 50 or you're 60, and you have a 30-year timeline on retirement, and right now you probably can drive and you feel independent and you can't imagine that you ever would not be. But this stuff may be sliding into mainstream usage right in your 70s or 80s, when your ability to be independent from a driving standpoint is most impaired, or that impairment is increasing. And this is going to help you do a couple things. And this is the big takeaway on the future of technology. It's going to help you maintain a sense of control over where you go, how you go, your independence a lot longer. That's powerful from a quality of life standpoint. It's going to be a heck of a lot safer than driving with my step-grandfather in Florida in that Grand Marquis and fearing for your life. Holy cow, that was a scary ride. And it's going to help you be mobile to live more and to rock retirement for a lot longer. The point of this is this pace of change is happening so quickly, and sometimes we forget the pace of change. You heard Nicole and I talking in the Hot Topic segment. this stuff happens and we notice it as this one little feature, this additional little feature in our car, or that electric bike that shows up, and it seems inconsequential, but these things compound over time. Sort of like your kid. When you're living with your kid, you don't realize how much they're growing. It's only when you step away and come back, oh my goodness, look what happened to them. Well, that's the same thing with technological advancement. And this is exciting stuff, especially for you and I who are over 50 and working to organize our life to stay independent as long as we can so we can rock retirement. So I'm excited about this. So next week in our practical planning segment, we are going to explore another big aspect of rocking retirement, which is maintaining quality social engagement. But for now, let's go back with Nicole and get happy. Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where I am amazingly happy to have Nicole back with me on the show. Hey, Nicole.
I'm back.
We're back. So we're talking about how awesome technology is. So I thought this was interesting when you told me the book that you said you're going to read next. And what is it?
It's Digital Minimalism, actually, by, I think, Cal Newport is his name.
Yeah, Cal Newport. You wrote Deep Work. Deep Work.
Yes.
Which talks a little bit about, we're talking about how technology is awesome. And here you're reading a book about minimalizing your digital footprint. Why do you want to read this?
So ever since Apple added that feature where it provides a usage report to you every week and it shows you how many hours you're spending on your phone, I was just like, that is a lot of time out of my life that I'm spending looking at this little device. And I just don't love that. There are hours that I could be doing other things. And so I'm trying to be a little more aware. Technology is a great tool as long as it's a tool and not a distraction,
Yeah. So what does this mean about getting happy? I think, for me, these are all great tools, but they also, like any tool, can be used for evil or can be used as a distraction for being authentic.
Right. Or it can prevent you from connecting with people around you. It's sad to me, like sometimes when I bring my son lunch at school, there's parents in there that have brought their kids lunch, but they're just looking at their phone. They're not interacting with their kids. And
you're with your kids, right? Do you do that? Or were you doing that?
I really try not to. I try to be conscious about it and try not to, but I know that I do sometimes. It's so darn easy. I mean, somebody texts you or...
Well, and it's that you feel like you have to respond. The only people I really feel like I better respond to are my wife, obviously. And you,
me.
Because you're bossy.
But something that actually helped me, I turned my phone, it's called downtime. So I turn downtime on once my kids are home from school, and it's on until they leave in the morning. So the only thing my phone really does without going over a bunch of obstacles is act as a phone. Like if someone calls me, I can answer it, but all the apps and the internet and all that is grayed out.
That's a great tip to try. And I think this is one reason why I love road trips, is because to have really quality moments, there has to be a lot of room of nothing in order for those moments to pop up, because you can't create a quality moment. The quality time concept, I'm not a big believer in. But on a road trip, even with the digital devices, ultimately somebody's going to get bored with something and random conversations will pop up. So if you think about, let's take that down to a smaller example. Let's say you're standing in line at the grocery store, right? And it's very natural just to go to your phone and read something. But if you don't have that, or you have this, do not disturb function on, you might strike up a conversation or say something nice to the person next to you. But it will never happen if you don't have that time of just sitting there looking around.
I think it's good for us to be bored sometimes. I mean, is that weird?
No, I think it creates the margin for the magic.
Right.
Ooh, I'm going to trademark that. The margin for the magic.
You should.
That's my new book coming out soon.
Listen to that.
All right, let's go set a smart sprint.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a little baby step for the next 7 days. I get this messed up all the time, Nicole.
Yeah, maybe we need to simplify this phrase.
We are trying to set a little baby step that you can do in 7 days to
create margin for magic.
create a better life. So in the next 7 days, we're talking about all these cool gadgets and technology, but I want to stick with the Happy Lab theme. In the next 7 days, put your phone away when you're standing in an elevator or standing in line and say hello to someone. Just try it once. See what happens. Hey, my friend, we have a request for you. If you like the show and you're here listening at the end of the show, so hopefully that means you like it or you fell asleep. If you like the show, there are a lot of people that don't even know what a podcast is. So if you know someone that you think might resonate and get value from what we're talking about here on Noodling and Hot Rock Retirement, tell them about the show. Send them a link to it. Send them to rogerwhitney.com so we can bring more people into the conversation. Nicole, did you bring me any more butterbeer?
I didn't. I'm going to try some copycat butterbeer over Easter weekend. I'll let you know how it is.
Okay, be careful.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.